Hello and welcome back to Wyvern Hearted Ink and Friends. My name is Claymore and today I'm going to be redesigning this old broken mirror frame and creating a piece specifically designed based on how the frame made me feel personally. Now obviously this is one of those Halloween frames specifically meant for a little Halloween mirror. The mirror had fallen out and cracked, and my friend didn't really have a use for it anymore, so that is how it fell into my hands, and I am obsessed with spooky things, so immediately I was like, yes, I will take this, I will turn it into an art piece, don't worry about it. I wasn't a huge fan of the beige with silver. I mean, it definitely gave the feeling of depth, but not quite to the level that I was hoping for. So I went over the entire thing with a base coat of black. This is me just filling in some of the cracks that I missed. And then I used my metallic watercolors over the top to give extra added depth by creating metallic highlights throughout. Almost immediately, the metallic shimmer just has such a huge effect on a black base. And this is how it turned out all the way across. I was doing this quick so that I could get to the actual art piece, but I really love how this turned out. So here I am sketching and figuring out my design. I don't normally ever include this because I tend to do a lot of my sketching sitting on the couch, not in my art studio at all. So this was the one time I took advantage of the fact that I was in my studio anyway, and I just decided to show you guys my little thought process and how I go about designing and sketching. I feel like out of everything, sketching is always the longest process for me personally, because I really have to figure out where I want things and how I want them to come from just an idea into a fully sketched piece. The design I created for this is something that I'm going to be doing for a series, The Birth of, and this is specifically The Birth of the Vampire. The concept in general was to create a womb-like piece with the creature, the mythological creature in the center, as if they are still in the womb, but this sort of nest around them being both a womb space and a space for all their things to collect and things that define them as a character. I personally absolutely adore using watercolors and gouache and just doing layers upon layers. It does take a long time and it's much more of a process than doing something digitally, but I feel like the outcome is so much better because I have these physical layers on top of each other that affect one another. So I can get these moody undertones for skin, and I can get these translucent effects that just don't come across the same in a digital space. Also, this was a bit of a challenge for me because I chose to do a limited color palette of just doing blue and pink, and then just having little hints here and there of black, purple, and pops of white. I really tried to stick close to that very conservative color palette for me. I know that's not a conservative color palette for other people, but for me, that is a hard thing to achieve, and I want to continue that in the rest of this series, but we'll see. I really wanted to go for a cute, creepy vampire rather than a stereotypical really scary vampire or a stereotypical very pretty vampire. I wanted to go for something kind of in between. I wanted to have that creepy aspect of the organs and the bones and little eyeballs and things, but also feel very much like a person still. They aren't completely lost from their humanity, I guess. This is just getting the main couple of layers of color down, just kind of getting the general feeling of it, to getting more outlined and more defined. Then I went through with one of my markers to really outline everything and add a couple little extra detail pieces that I can't do with my paintbrushes very well. It is a goal of mine to eventually be good enough with a paintbrush to be able to do these sorts of details without a marker, or to completely switch over to a ink pen, but currently this is my skill level. I feel like one of the things that's really defined my artwork as of recently is that I really dislike doing very small line work. I found that small line work tends to all just fall apart or come together too much. It all just blends, and then there's too much to look at or very little to look at. And so I found that using thick lines has really helped me define things much better. Here I'm trying to do a splatter effect. I don't think it worked very well. I really did try. I was using a nail cleaning brush and just putting some red gouache with lots of water on it and trying to spritz it across there. It kind of worked, but it took a lot of trial and error. Lastly, I went back in and redefined some edges, and then I started adding in my metallics. The metallics are like one of my favorite parts of the entire coloring process, to really add all these little edge highlights and pieces that really only shine when you look at it from certain angles. It has this very fantastical effect. Once I was happy with the layers that I had created and all the shine effect, I decided to start cutting out this piece after I had scanned it into my computer to put it into the frame. And for that part specifically, I am going to cut the music and turn up the volume so you can really get that ASMR cutting effect from specifically cutting very thick watercolor paper like this. I don't normally turn up the sound like that, specifically because I tend to breathe very heavily when I am very focused, and it was quite a struggle, but I was really deeply enjoying the crunchy sound, so I was trying to be very quiet, and I wanted to catch it on camera because what a lovely sound. Anyways, this then turned into a process of recutting, refitting, because I had made the art piece a little too wide. That's totally fine. I am a little sad because I had to cut out quite a bit for it to fit, and so I'm missing a lot of the edge details that I originally had in the piece, but all prints of the piece will have all of the entirety of the piece instead of what the original now looks like, but that is totally okay. I still love the final outcome of everything. I just wish I had done a little more double checking and measuring. Once I finally had it shaved down to the right size, I went ahead and used my Mod Podge on the base, completely covered that with Mod Podge, and then set it inlaid in the space. The main screw up that I had here was that after I put it in place, I wiped some of the Mod Podge around the edges to try and like seal it down and give it extra coating to like weigh it into the spot. And in doing that, I've only had this happen a couple of times, not regularly enough that I was anticipating this to happen, but I swiped it across and it blurred some of my lines. I'm guessing that maybe they weren't quite dry enough for me to be doing that, and so I had to go back through and retouch some things just to make sure that the edges weren't too blurred that it was going to be an issue for me later. Once I'd gotten everything in place and retouched it a little bit, I decided that even though I really loved how this had turned out thus far, I really wanted to add more of this drippy, bloody sort of viscera feeling, and I happened to have some glitter hot glue, specifically in a red and pink tone, and I used a little bit of both to add this drippy edged effect, also just to fill in the cracks and the crevices right here on the edge between where the art piece is and where the frame is. I just felt like it wasn't sealed well enough with just Mod Podge, and adding this extra layer would help build that up. After finishing that up, I decided that I had one last step to do, and that was to add glitter because it wasn't metallic enough for my liking. So just a little extra to make the skin glow and glitter a little bit and really give that magical mystique sort of feeling. Now for the final reveal. Here it is, my absolute pride and joy, my favorite piece that I've done probably this year. I really adore how this came out, and I'm hoping to do more in this series very, very soon. I will let you guys know as soon as it is available, and I will probably be selling prints at my next couple events. But before I leave you, here is a little commercial about my other pieces I've made recently.
Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to the world, our otherworldly and occult pops, including, but not limited to, cram pops and honey sriracha and Mary Cranberry, Cthulhu pops in Lovecraftian lime and cultist cotton candy, and for pops in radiant rainbow sherbet and devil's food cake. Otherworldly and occult pops is a Galaxy Elise booster item. Reverend Heart and Ink and Friends does not support the worship of occult or otherworldly entities. No animals were harmed in the making of this video or otherworldly and occult pops. Whatever you do, do not seek out the house in Relia or letter 617.